All right. Thank you. Busy night tonight on Hannity. Thank you for joining us. Now, the president tonight, once again, taking bold action to secure the American people. It's sad when you really stop and think, this is about lives, isn't it? Our fellow Americans, seriousness involved in this. You wouldn't know it from the media, Democrats. Now, the one guy that was ahead of the curve as it relates to China, travel bans, the need to secure America's borders, is now taking another important measure to protect we, the American people, and our jobs. Take a look.
We have a solemn duty to ensure these unemployed Americans regain their jobs and their livelihoods. Therefore, in order to protect American workers, I will be issuing a temporary suspension of immigration into the United States. You heard about that last night. By pausing immigration, we'll help put unemployed Americans first in line for jobs as America reopens. So important. It would be wrong and unjust for Americans laid off by the virus to be replaced with new immigrant labor flown in from abroad.
Now, certain essential workers will reportedly be exempt from the immigration suspension. That would include doctors on the front lines battling COVID-19, other health workers, and Americans. We always welcome immigrants, but the president's right to secure our borders. Why? We need to vet people, make sure that they don't have radical ties. We have to make sure now people are healthy, not to be invasive, to make sure they're healthy, to protect the American people. They have to be able to provide for themselves. And yeah, 90% of America's heroin crosses that border. We need to do it for that reason as well. Then, by the way, welcome to our great American family. This 60-day suspension will give us time to assess our economy, give Americans time to get back to work, hopefully sooner than later. What we have now witnessed in the past several months, the media mob will never tell you, Democrats will never acknowledge it, is unprecedented, and so is this administration's response. We are now witnessing right before our very eyes what has been and is the greatest medical mobilization this country has ever seen. President Trump vowed to get states all the critical supplies, the resources they need. So many states, most governors were not prepared for anything, no emergency. He's delivered in the promise in a big way. And so far, the federal government has distributed 57.4 million N95 masks, and they're being built as we speak. 85.3 million surgical masks, 6.4 million face shields, 12.3 million surgical gowns, 638 million sets of gloves, nearly 11,000 respirators. The strategic stockpile still has, nearly 10,000 ventilators in storage. That number is surging. The GM assembly line is now working, and they are producing every day. Over the next week, more than 500 will be delivered as promised. We had thousands more than we ever needed. Tens of thousands more will soon be on the way. The president and his team triggering the Defense Production Act worked. And thanks to all these great American businesses, by the way, they never stopped working. They kept supplying our hospitals, our heroes on the front line, our doctors, our nurses, our janitors in hospitals, the real heroes here. Well, they were being supported by people that didn't stop working. Just like the food was going on the shelves and the medicines were in your pharmacies, even in states like New York. They all stepped up to the plate. They never stopped working. They never shut down. Farmers farmed, packers packed, truckers trucked. And thank God those would stock those shelves, and they stayed stocked. Meanwhile, the United States also leading the world on testing. No country even close. It has tested more of its citizens than any other country, many countries combined, as a matter of fact. The president mobilized our great military, over 5,500 U.S. military personnel. They have been deployed across 24 hospitals, 28,700 National Guard heroes. They're now on duty as well. By the way, the Javits Center, that personnel came from the president. Same with the Comfort. That personnel came from the president. Let's not forget about Project Airbridge. That's the public-private partnership. It was organized by the White House. It sent massive U.S. cargo planes to pick up crucial medical supplies from factories around the world and get them here as fast as possible. So far, 64 flights have been completed. At least 50 more are scheduled. This massive mobilization did not happen overnight. Didn't happen by chance either. From the very first days of the virus, the president has taken one bold action after another to protect American lives. There's an op-ed in the Wall Street Journal rightly pointed out President Trump acted with dispatch to keep Americans safe, even when it was unpopular, like on January 31st, when President Trump banned travel to and from China, then the first quarantine in over 50 years, then subsequent travel bans. The mob, the media, raced to call him racist. They said he overreacted. The New York Times, geniuses that they are, they indicated days later, perfectly safe to travel to China. I wonder if anyone followed the New York Times' horrific advice. Inquiring minds want to know. The more confused than ever, Joe Biden called the president xenophobic, hysterical, accused him of fear-mongering. All the while, Democrats, what were they doing on Capitol Hill? They were consumed by their impeachment stunt. They weren't focused on the coronavirus, just criticizing the travel ban. Days earlier, Nancy Pelosi, remember, she was signing and handing out those commemorative impeachment pens and taking selfies. On February 4th, during the president's State of the Union address, as he was talking about the coronavirus, she was busy with another political stunt, pre-ripping and then officially ripping up the speech. Pre-planned temper tantrum for the cameras. February 24th, that genius that loves ice cream, she went down to the crowded streets of San Francisco's Chinatown, encouraged everyone to come visit. In March, the left was totally preoccupied with their insane political narrative that the president was racist for calling the coronavirus Wuhan or the China coronavirus, even though the virus originated in Wuhan in China. Remember this.
We are not behaving well when we talk about, as the president does every day, the Chinese virus, the Wuhan flu, and all of these racist descriptions.
Why do you keep using this? A lot of people say it's racist.
This is a virus that came from the territory of China, but came from bats. This is a bat virus, not a China virus. It doesn't speak Chinese.
The president says, no, this is not racist at all, when, of course, it's nakedly racist and obviously racist and blatantly racist.
For the president to call it a Chinese virus or a foreign virus, that is just not, it's just so dangerous.
Now, while the mob and the media spent March using the virus as a political weapon, which they did, other top Democrats, they were still playing down the severity of the pandemic. Now, Comrade de Blasio, March the 2nd, he was encouraging New Yorkers to go out on the town, catch a play. The governor, he claimed the disease wouldn't be as bad in New York as other countries. Wrong on both parts. New York is an international city. New York City is more densely populated than any other place in America. Geographically the smallest, with the highest concentration of people, far more risk for a terrorist attack and viral outbreaks than anyone else in the country. Yet, the city of New York was woefully unprepared. In fact, sometime after 2016, Comrade de Blasio, their ever-complaining mayor, actually auctioned off the city's 500 reserve ventilators, but he doesn't know who got them. And the city's stockpile of PPE supplies, well, they were virtually non-existent. So when the virus exploded, which was predictable because they had multiple studies, including the city of New York, the federal government came to the rescue, and rightfully so. It was the president. He ordered the construction of numerous emergency hospitals in and around New York. He staffed them for the mayor with federal personnel. He sent the USNS Comfort to New York Harbor. He staffed it with his personnel. He ordered the Army Corps of Engineers, FEMA, to construct a massive, the largest in the country, temporary hospital at the Javits Center. And he ordered both the ship and the Javits Center to be converted to accept COVID patients. Not an easy thing to do. You got to change the ventilation, everything else. They got it done. And the president also sent all the ventilators and millions of medical supplies and medicine that de Blasio never had. But Comrade de Blasio, not particularly grateful, shamefully standing in front of a microphone accusing the president of leaving New Yorkers to die. Can't make this up. He said it. Watch.
I remember famously in the 1970s when one of your predecessors, Gerald Ford, didn't care to help New York City during the fiscal crisis. There was that famous Daily News cover that said, Ford to city, drop dead. So my question is, Mr. Trump, Mr. President, are you going to save New York City, or are you telling New York City to drop dead?
Comrade de Blasio, if President Trump didn't bail your sorry, unprepared ass out, guess what? Many more New Yorkers in your city would have died. Many more would have been infected. Many more would have been hospitalized, and nobody would have had a ventilator. Instead, New York City, thanks to President Trump, you can thank him, Mr. Mayor, is seeing, thankfully, a precipitous decline in hospitalizations, intubations, a death rate not fast enough, but is also declining. Comrade de Blasio, he should be thanking the president because he built and manned the hospitals for you, Mr. Mayor. He sent you the ventilators you sold. He sent you the medical equipment you never had, knowing that the threats were real for New York. Now, you should be held accountable for your complete ineptitude, incompetence, and frankly, you're kind of ungrateful too, because the American taxpayers, we're paying for all of that. That means people outside of New York. You can thank them too. This brings us to something we've kind of noticed over the past several weeks. Now, while the president faces a hostile press corps every single solitary second of every day. Now, by the way, Governor Cuomo met with the president in New York. The governor, to his credit, has consistently praised the president. A few minor hiccups here and there. But to his credit, the governor's been thankful. The governor of New York has worked with the president daily. But we have noticed the liberal media mob does treat him differently than President Trump. He faces a far less hostile mob in the media. A quick example.
Is it possible that your impulse to put a positive spin on things may be giving Americans a false sense of hope?
No, I don't think so.
Misrepresenting the preparedness right now.
No, I don't think so.
Marriage bureaus are closed right now. Will the state do anything to help people get marriage certificates?
And where is Dr. Fauci?
I don't know, but every time you ask that question, whenever he's not here, you look, you say, where is he? And you'll say, is there a problem?
I'll talk to you tomorrow. How confident am I of federal responsibility and action? Not that confident.
Today we hit the grim milestone of more than 40,000 Americans now having died from the coronavirus. Can you explain then why you come out here and you are reading clips and showing clips of praise for you and for your administration?
What you just saw, it's not shocking, and I don't blame Governor Cuomo, but I do blame the mob and the media, because the same people, frankly, there have been many that have been rooting since Donald Trump became president that he fail from day one. The same mob that lied, smeared, slandered, besmirched, one conspiracy theory hoax after another. You know, they can't acknowledge a single good thing the president has done. People should ask the mob and the media, hey, in retrospect, was the president's travel ban a good thing? Did the president do a good job building those hospitals for New York? Did the president do a good job of getting the ventilators built and all the medical supplies sent to the ill-prepared mayor of New York? Even during a national emergency, the mob never changes. They will even politicize a virus because they so hate Donald Trump. That's how sick they are. But meanwhile, we have their timeline. March 8th, fake news, CNN, it's Trump's Katrina. Yeah, in the middle of Trump getting the supplies together. March 9th, Washington Post. This is Eric Pimple's paper, calling it Donald Trump's Chernobyl. March 12th, when President Trump extended the travel ban to Europe, the mob slammed him for infecting international relations. March 13th, when the president declared a national emergency, Time magazine called it an admission of failure. March 19th, fake news CNN claiming Trump's lack of imagination was costing American lives and treasure. March 30th, the Boston Globe, not to be undone by anyone else in the mob, accusing the president of having blood on his hands. April 8th, the psychos over at MSDNC that live in that whole altered universe of theirs, they had one of their paid commentators and hosts saying that tens of thousands of people will die because of Trump's coronavirus incompetence. April 11th, New York Times, very same paper, encouraging Americans to travel to China after the travel ban. Dumb that they are. They wrote that Trump should have seen the virus coming. He did the ban 10 days after the first case. You, 6 days later, were telling people it's safe to travel to China. Yikes. Monday, very angry MSDNC. By the way, former McCain for president liberal, Steve Schmidt, totally lost his mind. Steve, what's happened to you? Take a look.
More than 40,000 Americans are dead. This didn't have to be so. It's so because of the ineptitude of the White House response. 4 years on from the promise of I'll make America great again and I alone can fix it, we can survey now the wreckage and the magnitude of the disaster in this country that has been wrought by the Trump presidency, the ineptitude of the federal government, shows everybody around the world, from ally to adversary, what a clown show American governance has become.
It's sad, predictable, this kind of rhetoric. Really, in the middle of a national emergency, it has real consequences. The mob and the media, their breathless effort from day one of the presidency of Donald Trump, literally make him into a villain. Lie, smear, slander, hoax, conspiracy, they did it all. They're totally letting the world's worst bad actor get off the hook. This virus started in Wuhan, China. The Chinese government attempted to cover it up. They lied to the world. They killed scientists, murdered doctors, and suppressed important data that the world needed. They shut down all domestic travel to and from Wuhan within China, but they kept international flights going, protecting themselves, infecting the world. They should pay.